everybody, and welcome to BLT, to our Don't Stop Me Now series. It is such an honor and such a privilege to have you all here tonight with us for another exciting session with another fantastic guest. First of all, a couple of things just to start. Everything that we're doing, this whole series of BLT speeches, we are dedicating in honor and in memory of Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, Zichrono Livracha. So everything that we do is Le'ilui Nishmas, Rav Yaakov Tzvi ben David Aryeh. And as we said last week, it's a great opportunity for us to be able to dedicate what I think is an extremely important series, and I think the whole Bushy education team thinks is a really important series. Being able to listen to the stories and the insights and the wisdom from four fantastic speakers. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest. We are proud to welcome Rabbi Mo Mernick, who I am privileged to have known been trying to work this out, since 2004, which for me is a long, long time. I'm only young, don't forget. When we met in America in a special needs camp called HASC. Back then, we spent couple of summers together way back when I was a young lad. He has managed to do a significant amount. I've got his bio over here, and I mean, there's enough on here to really be for about 3 people. And considering, you know, I've got a very simple list of accomplishments, I might just steal a couple of these things and add them to mine just to bolster my own. But Rabbi Mo Mernick is the COO of Partners in Torah, which is something which I'm hoping he's going to share with us about during his speech, where he is spearheading a digital transformation, strategic partnerships, and global expansion. That's right, Rabbi Mo Mernick is trying to take over the world. Previously, he was the founder and the CEO at Winfluencers. And on top of that, that's not it, ladies and gentlemen. He was the head of BizDev, which I can only assume means business development. The home talk strategy consultant for Deloitte, regional director for the Lauder Foundation. I've lost track. We lost touch with each other over the years, and to see all of this here, absolutely staggering. He holds an MBA and smicha. Oh, and he is the author of a book, The Gift of Stuttering, which is going to be a chunk of the stories that he shares with us this evening. He also teaches a Daf Yomi Shir. Well, that's something I can put that on my list as well. So that, although I only do it once a week, he presumably does it every single day. And it's worth pointing out, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you'll all join me in wishing him Mazal Tov, because apparently he's going to be completing a whole cycle of Shas, of the Daf Yomi cycle, which is amazing as well. He produces inspirational videos. He gives lectures to audiences worldwide, including Bushy. He lives in Ramat Beit Shemesh with his wife and children, and his children were on Zoom with us earlier this evening. They're very cute. And not only that, guys, but tomorrow is his birthday. So happy birthday to you, Mo. And without further ado, we're going to hand over to you. Introducing, put your hands together for Rabbi Mo Mernick.
That was the most entertaining bio that I think I've ever, heard. So thank you, Rabbi Nick, for that, for the very entertaining dynamic. That was fantastic, and I really appreciate that. It is such a privilege to be here with all of you, and I've got to say that I've done a number of these Zoom talks. It's great to see so many of you actually with your video screens on. So thank you very, very much. It almost feels like we're in person. We can have that, audience engagement and a dynamic there. So I'm hoping we can communicate that way. I've heard so many incredible things about the Bushy community, and it's such a privilege to be here with you guys this evening. It is a big time here personally. As Rabbi Nick had just mentioned, I spent the last 7.5 years studying a page of Talmud each day, and on Sunday we're celebrating the completion of that. So there's a lot of planning going into that party, but also in an hour and a half, it's my birthday. So you guys are a part of a very special time here in my personal life. and it's a very special time to be spending it together with you. So just want to say that I feel the warmth, I feel the closeness. I'm really excited to be here this evening, so thank you so much for giving me the privilege of being here together with you. Did you guys see that short video that I sent you? Raising up your hands as high as you can. Do you guys remember that little video? Any of you guys saw that on the WhatsApp group that was sent out? So we'll ask it again for those of you who saw it, for those of you who did not. Let's start off for one moment, please, and everybody, let's all participate. We can all just take our right hands, yeah, everybody, and raise it as high as you can. Thank you. And then just a tiny bit higher, please. Perfect. And now you can put those arms down. Thank you. Can anybody please tell me, either in the chat or hop off of mute and let us all know, what did we just do? What was a little exercise? We all raised our hands. What did we do with those hands? You know what's so interesting? Yeah, good. Marion, thank you so much. Yes, we were raising our hands. We were raising our hands as high as we could, right? Raise your hands as high as you can. What happened right afterwards? I asked us all to raise our hands just a little bit higher. And I looked around at all these little Zoom boxes, and it was great to see that you guys were raising your hands a little bit higher. Weren't we raising our hands as high as we could beforehand? How did we raise them just a little bit higher? So the goal of the next 30 to 45 minutes is to hopefully help empower every one of us to reach just a little bit higher. Just when we think we might be raising our hands as high as we could, there's more that we could go. And the way that we'll be doing this, I want to share with you tonight one simple story. A story, and it's a personal story. And it's a story about me. It's a story about me growing up, and it's a story really about challenges, about adversity. It's a story about growing through challenges. It's a story about trying to find meaning and happiness in the challenges that we have. Because I know that every one of us here on this call, there's 63 of us here, or some of you guys are together, there's more, there's 63 little boxes here on Zoom, right? I'll be talking about my personal story, but while I'm doing that, if I can please ask every one of you a favor, think about your lives. Think about the challenges that you're being faced with. Now, everybody, we all have challenges in general, but it's definitely been a very challenging period of time for everybody on a local level, on a national, international level. There's all kinds of challenges. I struggled for so long trying to understand what these challenges are about, and I'll tell you why. I grew up in Toronto, so I feel a special sense of, we're part of the Commonwealth, and the Queen was on all of our coins, and that's how we grew up in Toronto. And I could have seemed like an ordinary kid in Toronto, played a lot of sports, a lot of ice hockey, a lot of basketball and other sports. But there was one part about my childhood growing up that made me stand out a lot. When I was younger, about 5 years old, 6 years old, I started to exhibit a little bit of a stutter. Do you guys know what that means just by show of hands? Does anybody know what it means to have a stutter? Good. I'm trying to follow through all the different screens here. Have any of you guys ever met somebody that has a stutter? Just out of curiosity, just by show of hands. Great. Have any of you guys seen The King's Speech? Just out of curiosity, the movie The King's Speech. Great. Okay, good. Okay, good. It's great to hear that. So when I was younger and I had this little stutter, I, like many kids who have a stutter, they grow out of it. So we were hoping that I would grow out of it, but I didn't. I was 6, 7, 8 years old. I still had this pretty bad stutter. I was going to be a part of this 1% of the adult population in the world with a stutter. Now, I just want to let you know what it's like to stutter. I'm glad many of you saw The King's Speech. Just to point out, because it's very unique. Let's say one has a lisp. Every time they try to say a certain letter, R or S, they'll get caught on that letter, right? It'll come out in a unique way. Stuttering is not like that at all. It's so in our minds. It's in our minds. There's certain words that we stutter on more, certain words that we stutter on less. When we stutter, have you ever heard, so when somebody stutters, it can sound like a stammer. Like if I'm saying my name is Mo, it can sound like my name is Mo. Or if, let's say, I'm getting stuck, it can sound a bit more like, and the sound just won't come out. That's more of a block. I was a kid trying to go to school, trying to make friends, and this was debilitating, even as a young kid, not being able to get those words properly out of my mouth. I vividly recall, I'm in my 30s now, I recall what it was like to be a young kid and being laughed at by friends. Walking into class and being afraid to say my own name. Can you guys just, by the way, think about this for 1 second. We stutter on certain words more than others. I'm curious, you guys can put into the chat. I would love to see if anybody gets this answer right. What do you think is the most popular word for those of us who stutter? What do we stutter on most? What word do we stutter on most? Feel free to drop it right into the chat. What word do you think would be the most challenging for us to say? My, I, very good suggestions. Very good suggestions. And it's so funny, I've asked this question to so many people that have a stutter, and it's fascinating to see such similarity. Me, good. Similar. The hardest word for us to say, good, Simon Shapiro. Simon Shapiro, how do you know that? Where's Simon? I'm trying to find Simon's box here. Simon, that was fantastic. Wherever you are, great guess. Our name. Why is it so hard? This is fascinating. Why is it so hard to say our name? Think about it. Let's say I come into class one day. I'm 8 years old. And like it's the first day of, let's say, I don't know, right? 3rd, 4th grade. And the teacher says, everybody, say your name. I want to learn your names. And everybody's going around. Everybody's saying their names in a few seconds. And then all of a sudden, it comes to my turn. I'm like, and I can't get that word out. And the kids start laughing, and the teacher's like, what is that kid doing? And all of a sudden, it's like a horrendous experience. My cheeks go red, and I just want to drop, and I want to hide. Guess what happens? Psychologically, the next time somebody asks me my name, what do I try to do? I remember that experience. There's also something called word switching. This is fascinating. I'm telling you guys, whenever you meet somebody that stutters, you'll think about this. This is fascinating. Whenever we have a word, and by the way, I'm doing this throughout the talk that we have tonight. It is wild how this works still in my mind. We'll get back to that a bit later. But we do what's called word switching, which means that I know what I'm going to stutter on. I'm scanning ahead a couple words, and I know which letters are going to be harder for me. And if I think I'm going to stutter on that word, I'll change that word, and you'll have no idea. It's become a whole skill, like a whole sport. So if, let's say I'm about to say that, I live in, that the weather is, here, pause. Can I just actually walk you through this for a second? I'll just give you an example. Is that okay? This is like super important. I was about to just circumvent it, but listen to this for 1 second. I was about to say I live in Israel. Did you guys see that? I said I live in, and then I paused for about 2 seconds, and then I started to say something else about the weather. I was trying to say I live in Israel. I knew I was going to stutter on Israel, so I didn't say the word Israel. I was going to start saying something else about the weather and change the word. Because why? How do I say I live in Israel? I can't change the word Israel. So I would try to say something else instead. So this is what it's like. It's a constant sport to change things. And anyway, so this is kind of like the way that this talk works, the way that I'm able to speak more. But when I was younger, I went to like many, many, many years of speech therapy, trying to get around this thing called the stutter, because I'm naturally outgoing. I like to make friends. When Rabbi Nick and I were in camp, I like to talk to people. I like to talk. And it was really difficult for me to be laughed at. And I would just prefer to not speak and not make new friends and not talk. But my stuttering wasn't getting better. It really wasn't getting all that better. My speech therapist would often tell me, there's a whole list of famous people who stuttered, and guess what? They lived great lives, right? Of course, from the movie The King's Speech, Ed Sheeran, right? Ed Sheeran's got a stutter. I'm sure you guys know it, right? Ed Sheeran, the famous singer from the UK. He started to sing at a young age because he had a stutter. Whenever we sing, we don't stutter. So he sang a lot. He didn't stutter. Of course, you guys might know also the president-elect in the US, Joe Biden. So Joe Biden grew up with a pretty debilitating stutter. He's very open about that as well, and he helps many young kids who have a stutter. I'll show you something, by the way. I wrote a book called The Gift of Stuttering. We'll talk about this. The Gift of Stuttering. And I'll just show you. That's Joe Biden's signature right there. Super kind, super, super nice. I'm not talking politics. I'm not talking politics. I'm just mentioning that famous people have a stutter, and during speech therapy, we're always taught that famous people have a stutter and you could do it too. But when I was 8, 9, 10 years old and starting to become bar mitzvah, 11, 12, 13, I was miserable. Life was super challenging. I wasn't happy. I wasn't able to speak. I didn't feel like I was able to be myself. And it was very hard to look ahead on a life where I felt so alone, so ridiculed at school. Who was I ever going to date? Who was going to date me if I couldn't talk? What job can I ever get if I can't get words out of my mouth? What's life going to be like? But do you know what was more upsetting than that? What was really upsetting to me as a young kid, I went to Jewish day school. And guess what they teach us at Jewish day school? Mo, guess what? There's something called a God, right? He created the world. He did. And guess what? Everything that happens is for the best. He loves you very much. And I kept on thinking, like, this stuff sounds wild. This stuff sounds, what do you mean there's a God who created the world? There's a God who's involved with my life? So why is it a living hell? Why can't I speak? Does he care about me? I'm 10, 12, 13 years old. I'm miserable. Is there, like, what's going on? Prayer. Okay, prayer. All right, we've got this. I'm going to pray that God takes this thing away, right? Perfect. Hello, God. Can you take this away? The next day, God, it's Mo again. Hey, nice to chat. Can you try to take this thing away? God, we spoke the last couple days. I didn't hear back from you. Can we please negotiate this stutter? I don't want to live with this forever. And it didn't go away. And I really was getting frustrated with the lack of seemingly communication and the lack of clarity in spirituality. And I was on the verge of deciding all this stuff seems to be either just totally not true or at least not for me. I don't know why, but as a 14-year-old kid, I was enthralled by television, by movies, by television. And I decided I want to be an extra in movies and television shows. Back then, I would never have the courage to have a speaking role in a movie. I would be too mortified and I would be too afraid to say anything on set. So at least I got what's called like an extra, like a background performer, it's called. Like you're the guy in the background, right? So I remember, do you guys want to hear just a funny story? So the first time, I'm 14 years old, 10th grade. And I was, at this point, I finally got my mom to sign me up. I have an agent. I get to go to movies. And I finally got the call to go to the first movie. It was, I think, a Monday morning. I got to skip school, be in a movie, and get paid for it. This was like a dream come true for me as a 14-year-old kid. It was exactly what I wanted. It was fantastic. And I remember that at this point, I used to wear a kippah at that age. And I was beginning to wear it less. Not feeling it so much. Not feeling the relationship with God. And certainly when I go to a movie set, they're not going to be happy with it. So on the way downtown, my mom is driving me to the movie set, downtown Toronto. And my mom says to me, Mo, I just have one favor for you, please. One favor. When we get to the movie set, can you just try to leave your kippah on for the day? Is that okay? Try to leave your kippah on. I remember I looked at my mom. I was like, my mom, I'll give it a shot. I'll see what I could do. Really good Jewish mom. She cared. She loved me. Beautiful. I get out of the car and I slip it into my pocket. I'm going to be in a movie. I'm going to Hollywood. This is amazing. This is the life. And guess what? God has got the greatest sense of humor. I show up on set First time, I'm like super duper like starry-eyed of everything, of all the movie trucks, of all the lights and the cameras and everybody in the little walkie-talkies. And the assistant director is showing us what our different roles are going to be. Can anybody guess what my role was? Continue before I tell you. Can you guys hear me? Oh.
And now we lost you for a moment there. You were saying, can you guess what the role was?
Apologies. Okay, great. Sorry, my internet went down for a moment. Okay, here we go. Carolyn, a frum boy. Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys. Very good guess. So not only a frum Orthodox boy, but I show up onto this movie set, not really sure what was going to be. And the assistant director is telling me that my role for the day was to play the part of a Hasidic Jew. Not just a Jew, and not just a frum Jew, Orthodox Jew, whatever, like decked out, white, black, the whole thing. And I was like, this isn't funny, God. Like, I'm trying to get out, going to movies, and you're pushing me all the way back to the other side. What's going on? So anyways, it was also funny. I was on set that first day, and like I slipped my keypad out of my pocket instead of wearing some random one from the hair and makeup artist. And she comes over to me. She goes, excuse me, sir, but the Jewish people, they wear it like this. And so she puts it on the back of my head, and she puts on 6 more clips. That's the way the Jewish people wear it. I said, oh, thanks for letting me know, ma'am. I appreciate it. Anyways, it was a very insightful day. But it was actually fascinating for me at that age as a teenager. And a teenager who was an angry teenager, a rebellious teenager. It was fascinating for me to be on set of many, many, many movies and television shows and meet some of the greatest, most famous icons that I had as a kid, from Russell Crowe and to Renee Zellweger and to Robert Downey Jr., the big singer Drake, Lindsay Lohan, Megan Fox, like a lot of these people, and to be spending time on set with them. This was like my dream come true, to maybe try to become famous one day and be in movies. And what I started to see very interestingly was that deep sense of happiness that I was missing for sure in my life, but that I felt that other people had, was not as easily found as I would have thought. And at this point in my life, 14, 15 years old, I was at this pivotal point. I was about to go to public school and feel like I'm done with Judaism. But I also want to be clear. I think it's important for the storyline. I'm talking a lot about my stutter and the way that impacted me. I was going through a lot at that age. At that age, my parents were going through a really rough divorce. So not only did I have the challenge, I wasn't really able to speak much, but my home, it wasn't much of a home. And of course, the impact of that, for those of you who know people or yourselves have had experiences, right? It wasn't much of a home for years leading up to me being a 15-year-old. Also, I don't know what God had in mind, but when I was around that age, he also decided to give me the challenge of having a back brace. I have scoliosis as a teenager. My spine was curved, and thank God I never needed surgery on my spine, but I had to wear a brace from my shoulder down to my waist, a thick, thick back brace, which was really, really difficult. I remember lying down in the hospital in Toronto, downtown Toronto, right around this time, crying. Like, what in the world does God want from me? If he's there, what is he doing to me? I came to Israel on a trip. I found myself, like many times before, at the Western Wall. But that time at the Western Wall, it was so much more real and raw than ever before. And for the first time ever, and this is like where I look back on my life, for the first time ever, I felt that I truly, truly connected. I went over the wall with no prayer book, no text, just me, and I started to cry. Loneliness, fear, sadness, being confused about who I am and where I'm going. I remember begging for God to give me clarity. I can assure you now that deep down, I really always knew that he was there, but things just didn't make sense, so I pushed it away. Parenthetically, so many, and I've worked, in Jewish educational institutions and on outreach programs all around the world. So often, I find that many people, right, deep down, our soul shines. Like we know there's something there, but the world is such a dark place sometimes. And there's so many challenges. It's hard to reconcile. Like, how is there this loving God who's involved, and how does the world exist like this? God sent me in my life at that age blessings of role models and a track. I decided to spend a little bit of time here in Israel to study. And God had an amazing way to get me one of the greatest role models that I still have today, a dynamic, out-of-the-box Brooklyn guy. Brooklyn, New York, very dynamic personality. And he spoke prolifically, like passionately, amazingly. And guess what? He had a really big stutter. And I, for the first time as a teenager, had met somebody who also has a bad stutter, but who was loving life, who was happy with life, who was on fire, who loved Judaism, passionate about Torah. I was like, what's wrong with you? Like, how do you do that? And he shared with me more about his life. Not just was it his stutter. When he was about 15, he had cancer. When he was about 18 or 19, the cancer came back. He went through multiple challenges in his life as well. And we became really close. And the first thing that I began to study with him was prayer. I want to understand this thing called prayer. Teach me, how does this thing work? Because I've been spending years asking for this thing to go away, but it's not away yet. 16, 17 years old, I was at that point. We began to study prayer. And I've got to tell you something that sticks with me to this very day about one of the most unique, complex concepts called prayer. Like, we are speaking to the creator of the world. What are we doing? So many complex questions about prayer. One of the biggest, are you guys able to hear me? Are you able to hear me? We good? Thank you. Sorry, my internet. One of the biggest ideas that brought me through that period of time, and listen to this closely, guys, I think it's something that we can all learn from, is that my prayer slightly shifted and changed. It wasn't just about God, get rid of my stutter. It became, God, somehow, you know what you're doing. I don't understand it, but I know that you love me and you care about me. Please get rid of my stutter. Please, I don't want it. But if for whatever reason you think that I need it, give me the strength, the fortitude to deal with it. This was all in the larger picture, though, of this major paradigm shift that occurred. I'll tell you, over the last, during lockdown and, over the last few months, I got into yoga. I've never done yoga in my life, but over the last 2 months, I've become a total yoga. I love my yoga now. And my yoga instructor, who lives nearby, was featured in the New York Times, one of these super guru, spent years in India, yoga instructor. He's brilliant. The time that I've spent with him, he pushes me so hard into stretches and body contortions that I never knew that I possibly can. Anybody here do yoga? You guys, anybody? Stretching and pushing the limits that I never knew possible. But do you know what? First of all, I pay for those classes. And guess what? They do wonders for me. Emotionally, physically, they do wonders for me. And my instructor, the reason why I really like going to him instead of just taking a YouTube class, is because he knows my body well enough to know where to push and push and push and where to stop. What is the limit? How far can Mo go? And stop. Let's stretch those muscles more. Next week, more. Do more. Okay, now do. That's what it's all about. Do you know what I realized? Do you know what I realized? Think about this super duper simple but major transformational paradigm shift of the way that we see the creator of the world, God, Hashem, is that he's not this like scary person in heaven who's like trying to like poke us and hurt us. And he's like my yoga instructor. He knows me so well, better than understands my capabilities, understands where he could push to stretch those muscles, understands my full potential. And that paradigm shift for me to realize that God is like my personal trainer, like my coach, like my yoga instructor, who's helping me become all that I could be, that was groundbreaking for me. Seeing that the challenges that I was going through were not for nothing, were not random, but they were custom designed to give me the best possible life that I could lead so that I could fulfill my potential here in this world. The beginning of this paradigm shift, I began to start to see it through the studying of the Torah and through the prism of that meaning. And I began to experience it through prayer and experience it. And I began to like take off these layers of anger, these layers of loneliness, these layers of confusion. I felt like I began to tap into something called like meaning and purpose. And ultimately, which is very important, becoming happy with who I am. My parents are divorced. My back is going to be crooked forever. I can't change those realities. What will I do with my life? And I've got to say that with the back brace as a teenager, I started to have some fun with it. I totally decided, like, let me try to have fun with this. I see some of you looking at me like, having fun with a back brace? Are you out of your mind? I became known as the guy with the greatest six-pack ever. And people who were like much bigger than me, I told them like, punch me as hard as you can, and they could like try to punch. And it became a joke for all my friends. They're like, you'd punch, and I was like the short little kid. With my parents' experience as a teenager still, I was committed to do everything that I can to be an awesome husband, to be an awesome dad, to be there in ways that I did not experience as a kid. How do I build up those right character traits? With my stutter, never to laugh at anybody else, to appreciate our health. Have any of you woken up this morning and said, wow, I could speak. Wow, I could speak. Can you imagine speaking without thinking about it and changing your words? Can you imagine? Can you imagine? What a blessing. Can you imagine? The paradigm shift of recognizing that these things are gifts started to create an entirely different trajectory in my life. I began to start moving forward with it. I could have lived the rest of my life in anger and in rebellion and upset. And I decided that this is my life. God put me here for a reason. I realized also there's another Moshe. My full Hebrew name is Moshe. There's another Moshe who had a stutter, right? Moses. He had a stutter, right? He accomplished some pretty cool things in his life, right? Let me try to do what I could do. And let's God start to run the show. And I want to tell you guys, right? You're seeing me now, I'm maybe not stuttering so much, but I want to tell you it's wild. It's wild. 17, 18, 19 years old. Once I realized that this stutter is okay, after 10 years of speech therapy, and in my book I described, I went to some wild speech therapy. Like most of you guys saw the King's Speech, I did some pretty crazy stuff as well to try to get over the stutter. But guess what? Once I said the very simple fact that I'm going to stutter forever, and that's okay, I began to stutter less. When I met new people and I said, hi, my name is Mo, I just want to let you know I have a stutter, and that's who I am. That's how God made me. People didn't laugh at me anymore. And that built up my self-confidence, more self-esteem. This is who I am. This is the package that I have. We can all go on Instagram and we can look at everybody else's life that looks so much better than ours. They look so much happier than us. They look like they've got it all. And they're looking back at us the same exact way. Every one of us has a unique package. And that package is perfectly designed for us to help us become the people that we can. I'll tell you also, one of the things that I was really, really nervous about years later, I went to university. By the way, my public speaking course was a nightmare to me. I was still really nervous about speaking, but I just jumped into my public speaking course at university and actually began to speak. The more confidence I developed speaking, the more I began to public speak, the more I began to stand up. And all those passion that I had for acting at the age of like 12 or 13, right? Acting in movies and television shows, now actually that's what I do when I speak publicly. Earlier today, you guys might not even believe me. It's wild. I was stuttering so much today before this call, like a ton today. It was just one of those days, stuttering a lot. And my wife was like, "Good, so hopefully you'll stutter on the video when you're, talking to them. They'll believe you have a stutter." But when I public speak and I perform and use my hands, I stutter much less. But the way that I've been able to speak and get out there is recognizing that God gave me this thing called a stutter. God gave me this thing called being from a family that was broken. And God gave me these things and said, "Mo, how are you going to build your life through it?" One of the things that I was really concerned about, I was saying before, was who am I going to get married to? Right? Even with my stutter, even being comfortable with my stutter. There was a girl that my family was encouraging me to date for years, right? But I was traveling all around. After university, I worked in Germany for a little while. I was in Australia. I bounced around a lot to work on various nonprofit educational programs, outreach programs, leadership programs for teens. I realized that the questions and the challenges that I was going through were so much broader than just me, but many people have these questions, and starting to empower teens with self-esteem and confidence to lead their lives in a happy and meaningful way. But I was still a little bit nervous about who am I going to marry? And I went out with this girl, literally the girl of my dreams. Right? Everything I heard about her was wonderful and special and powerful and beautiful. And on the second date, I told her, I said, "I just got to let you know, my stutter. I just want to let you know, I'm being honest with you. It will come up in life. It will be embarrassing. You might be introducing me to your grandma, and guess what? I won't get my name out. That's who I am. That's how God created me. And I'm here to fulfill. And I just want to let you know that." And her answer floored me. It totally blew my mind. She said to me that she knew that I had a stutter. She heard about it. And she was excited to go out with me anyways. Why? Not because she loved the stutter, but she was so impressed with how I was able to lead the life that I was leading with the challenges that I had. She said, "It's easy to appreciate the happy times and the good times, but I want to meet somebody. I want to have a lifelong partner, a mate, a husband, who's going to be able to embrace the challenging times and be happy and be positive and grow through those times." If you guys got to hear this, do you want to hear this? Just a few more brief things and we'll wrap up, open up for question and answer. I'll be happy to hear anybody's questions. Listen to what happened, guys. I felt like I got literally prophecy from, do you want to hear that? Like prophecy from heaven. I'm not really Moses, but do you want to hear this crazy story? Crazy story. One of my engaged. I just celebrated my 10th anniversary. This is 10 years ago. About to get married. What happens by an Orthodox wedding is right before the wedding, the Shabbat before the wedding, the guy goes up to the Torah. He gets called up to the Torah and says a little blessing, and sometimes they throw candy at him. In Bushy, do you guys throw candy at the groom? Does that happen? No candy at the groom? Okay. But anyways, the guy gets called up to the Torah and says a blessing. Now, this might sound wild to you, but I'm bringing you into my life. I have a really hard time saying that blessing. Even today. Why? Why is that? Why can't I say that blessing? And I stutter on it so much. I'm more nervous saying that blessing in front of 10 people in a synagogue than speaking to 60 of you on a Zoom call. What is it about that blessing, guys? Do you remember earlier from the talk? Anybody remember? What is it about that blessing that I can't do? Feel free to go off mute and say it, or feel free to drop it in the chat. My name, good, very, very good. What do I always do? I switch words all the time. This morning, I had a big team meeting with like 15 of us, and I had to read an email that somebody sent us for the team. I stuttered a lot. When I read text, I stutter a lot. Joe Biden just gave a big speech about this also. Whenever we have to read something, we stutter a lot. We can't switch the words. There's more anxiety. Happy to circle back on that afterwards. When I'm speaking to you now, I have no text in front of me. It's from my heart, and I can switch words around all the time. Going up and saying a blessing over the Torah, I can't switch any words around. So for years as a teenager, I didn't want to do it. I was too afraid. But before my wedding, I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm not going to avoid the blessing. I'm going to do this. But I was really nervous. Everybody was at the synagogue and the whole thing, and everybody's there waiting for me. I go up to the Torah. Hands sweaty, really nervous. Excited for my wedding, but really nervous about this blessing. They call out my name. I put the prayer shawl, the talit, over my head. And I'm about to make the blessing over the Torah. Do you guys want to hear the first 6 words in the Torah? Where I was supposed to start from. These 6 words right there waiting for me. Do you guys want to hear this? Literally like prophecy from heaven. Are you guys ready for these 6 words? I'll translate them. First 4. Vayomer Hashem El Moshe. And God said to Moses. My one Hebrew name is Moshe. My one name, Moshe. And God said to Moses. 2 more words. Are you ready? Al tira. Do not fear. And God said to Moses, do not fear. I had tears in my eyes. I was like frozen. I was like, oh my gosh. Do you know what's so powerful about those words though? God was not telling me, Mo, it's going to be easy or it's going to be smooth. Challenges are not easy. They're not smooth. It's still hard. But don't fear. I'm with you. I'm here with you. I've got you. I gave this to you. It's for a reason. I'm with you. I love you. You've got this. Be you and be happy being you. And that message has resonated and stayed with me for the last 10 years and always. We are right now going through seriously challenging times, every one of us. Our ability to recognize these times as challenging and to recognize these times as somehow from heaven. And we can all find ways in these times that we're able to grow, whether it's financially, whether it's emotionally, whether it's physically, whether it's with our health, family members. There's so many different things that are impacting all of us. Like everything God does, it's with the greatest possible love for every single one of us. And if we can try within that challenge that we're having, every single one of us now, to connect with him, to talk to him, to ask him to help guide us with clarity what we should do, and to try to take that opportunity to make our lives more meaningful as a result, it's a total game changer. I want to pause here. I want to keep it open for Q&A. There's so much more, but I do want to open it up for Q&A, okay? It's so nice to have this video call. It's so nice to see you guys. It's so nice to scroll through. The deep conversations I've been having with so many people over the last number of weeks and months is that so many of us are hurting so much. Our ability to take that pain, to take those challenges, to take that loneliness, and to recognize somehow that those things are a gift from heaven, like the gift of stuttering, they're gifts from heaven. It can lead to the greatest possible deep and inner joy and meaning and true happiness with who we are, and that we can accomplish unique things in this world that nobody else can. I'm going to open it up for a Q&A. Rabbi Nick, do you want to do it via voice, or is it better to do it via chat?
We're going to do it via Rabbi Feldman. is the big boss, and we're going to hand over to you, Rabbi, as well.
Hey, thank you, Rabbi Nick, and Mo. How amazing and how powerful! Amazing to have you join our community and to share so passionately with us. I think for me specifically, the reflection I have, which I don't think you touched on, probably because it's so natural for you, that you've taken your adversities and not just learned how to succeed in them, but also to help other people as well. And I think that's phenomenal.
Can I just comment on that for 1 second? I just heard a story like 3 hours ago, one of the most wild stories that I've heard, and I've got to tell you, taking our challenges and helping others. Guys, I just heard this story. My colleague at work just shared it with me today. Are you guys able to hear me? Are we good? When he was 7 years old, he told me. He just told me this. I left the office. He just told me this. When he was 7 years old, his dad passed away. And somebody showed up to his house during the Shiva period of time, a few days after his dad passed away, and brought him, a teacher of his, brought him a large bag of Kit Kats, of chocolates. He knew that he liked chocolates. He brought him some chocolates. And he remembers, sounds almost ironic or sounds strange, like bring somebody chocolates when their father just passed away, but at 7 years old, he remembers how much he enjoyed those chocolates and how sweet it was for him, how helpful it was for him. A few years ago, a neighbor of his passed away, a dad of 10 kids, some young. And he went over to that house holding a big bag of chocolates. And he gave that 7-year-old boy a bag of chocolates. He just heard, listen to this last part of the story. It literally made my body chill. He just heard from the mom of that boy that the boy's friend had a dad who passed away. And the boy said to the mom, let's go visit. But before we go over, let's go buy a bag of chocolates. That was the most meaningful thing anybody ever did to me when dad passed away. And I want to pay that forward and help somebody else with it.
It sounds like that rabbi you met in Israel who parenthetically was from Brooklyn, which, I'm sure has nothing to do with his capacity of doing amazing goodness. He gave you that bag of chocolate and you've been passing it forward as well, which is just phenomenal. The mechanism for everyone who would like to contribute is twofold, threefold really. The most organized fashion would be go into participants and click on the raising hand function, so we could call on you, and then you could unmute yourselves and share a question. Alternatively, in the chat function, feel free to ask the question. We can ask it on your behalf to Mo. And then there's the more reckless variety, which is just kind of to raise up the question, either raising your hand and flaring around, or just simply bellow, which is the more traditional method of Zoom communication. So whichever way and you'd like to, Mo really wants to be able to share. So please feel free in this forum.
Marion, yes, I see that you're.
Hi. Thank you very much for your talk. Extremely interesting. Very impressed with the way you've managed everything. There's two things actually. First of all, how did you manage with your bar mitzvah? And secondly, I saw a program many years ago where a gentleman had a very severe stutter, and the speech therapist put earphones over him, and when he couldn't hear himself speak, he didn't stutter.
I love the questions. So first of all, let's start with the second. Stuttering is wild. It's absolutely wild. When we whisper, we never stutter. When we talk to ourselves, we never stutter. When we sing, we never stutter. It is wild. You can ask anybody who stutters. Severe stuttering. These things, we don't stutter. But somehow, somewhere between our brain and our lips, and I'm not a scientist or an expert, but there's a lot of that research. It's still unclear though. Something's happening when we're speaking to others. With the bar mitzvah, I spent about a year in speech therapy focused on my bar mitzvah. I was blessed that the reading from the Torah is almost like a sing-song. So I just made it a bit more singy. And that helped a lot. In terms of your other question was, please, my Marion, it was about the bar mitzvah. Oh yeah, and about that. So there are a lot of different things that speech therapists do to try to make us speak more fluently. Speak slower, speak in a sing-song, cover up your ears. Most of them feel very unnatural, and therefore they're very hard to continue through with. I've spoken to many people who stutter, and it's very difficult to speak like that. The things that I do is I speak a bit more passionately, dramatically. I use my hands a lot, I move a lot. Those help me a bit more dramatic. When I don't do that, I stutter more. But there's all kinds of different ways that people try to find ways to do that. But the most important thing was feeling comfortable to be myself. And therefore, that ability to plug to be myself, which is so important, allows me to stutter. I remember so many conversations for years starting, I just want to no, I have a stutter. That's me. The anxiety then goes down around what if she finds out I stutter. I was in a big business meeting. I was like a senior executive at a tech startup, and I flew to Atlanta to meet with like a super senior media person. I remember this meeting so clearly, and she was like I was almost like celebrity-like to me. And I went to the meeting so nervous. And I said, I just want to let you know I have a stutter in case it comes up. And she said to me, I know you have a stutter. I researched you online. I know. And we spoke for about 30 minutes about challenges she's having with her teenage son. And we spoke about meaning of life. She wasn't Jewish. It didn't matter. It's such deep things that are part of all of us. And the meeting and the business contact was so much better than ever before. That vulnerability, that deep connection was so powerful. In life, sometimes we can't always get over our challenges. People often say, oh, I overcame my challenge. Sometimes we can't overcome them. We can't just get past them. Corona, I can't just go out again. How do I confront that challenge? Or even better, how do I embrace that challenge? That might mean not putting the earphones over the head. You mean being me, talking like me, and stuttering like me, and being happy with who I am.
Thank you, Marion. Just a reflection as you were talking. I remember when I was in 9th grade, which is I was about 14 for British to speak, and a very good friend in my class, Yitzchak, who had a debilitating stutter as well, and he actually went. He left the school for a number of months. He went to a place in Virginia where there was like an intensive academy. I don't think he was Jewish, in fact, but he came back without a stutter. It was actually absolutely remarkable. But it sounds like the approach that you've taken, or that you've gone on, is more holistic, in identifying the stutter as part of your identity rather than something that needs to be purged. Any other question? Anything before Mo? If anyone else has any questions that they would like to bring up as well in any capacity, please feel free to.
I actually have a question, if I'm allowed. Am I allowed a cheeky question? I wanted to ask how it is that you've kind of gone with the rabbi bit for a bit of time and then heavy into the business side of things. What's driven all of that? I stuck with one. Just interested to know if the journey has been as a result of your experiences or separate to that. What's been the rationale?
Sure. So when I finished college, my plan was to go into finance. My plan was to go into finance and to my plan was to go into finance, and I was doing an internship in finance, and the goal was to become a business guy. I spent 7 weeks on a volunteer stint in Germany for the Ronald Lauder Foundation, teaching across various cities, Munich, Leipzig, Hamburg, Berlin, to the Jews who lived there. I remember that trip was very pivotal in my life, because up until that point, I was so hindered by my speech and by my stutter and the challenge of talking. And I remember there, I began to speak publicly for really the first time. I began to get up in front of these large groups. I remember speaking in front of like 100 students at a Munich, meal on a Jewish holiday, and speaking and laughing about my stutter and like talking about life and meaning of life and really being happy. And I realized that the challenges that I'd been going through for years as a teenager, as I briefly mentioned, were felt by so many more people in their own unique ways. So we all have challenges. And I became passionate after having many conversations, very meaningful conversations with people, that I really wanted to dedicate my life to helping other people, leading a more meaningful life and a happier life. So I spent a number of years focused on that, then shifted back into business, where I was like, you know what, let my job be in the business world. So I was in the media world. I ran a media startup, connecting advertisers and influencers on social media. I did various things in the business and in the technology space. I was planning to kind of stay there. A year and a half ago, a Jewish nonprofit reached out to me. They connect people in one-on-one study partnerships all over the world for nearly 30 years. And they knew what I was doing, and they asked me if I can come join them for 2 years, at least for 2 years, build a platform and help grow and connect with so many more Jews all over the world. So I decided that maybe I can try to blend those passions of business and international growth, building technology, trying to facilitate that, and at the same time, trying to help people out, getting people connected with the one-on-one study partnerships, meeting other people, creating meaningful relationships, all the things that helped me so much, the mentors that I had, the connections that I had, how much that helped me, what a blessing it would be to build technology that can help facilitate that for many thousands of people. And I'm humbled to say that the organization Partners in Torah have been doing phenomenal things, and it's amazing. Like about every year, they matched about 1,500 people per year to connect in study partnerships. So we build technology, kind of like a dating platform almost, and there's so much more that can be done. And I'm proud to say that, like in the last few weeks, we recruited about 2,500 people from 31 countries all over the world. So we're growing exponentially more than where the organization has been in the past. And it's beautiful to see the emails, the stories, the experiences of Jews all over the world, whether they want to learn about the Jewish approach to mindfulness or Pirkei Avot or the weekly Parsha, or how do we understand challenges or prayer or Shabbat, relationships, parenting, any subject. It's been beautiful to be able to bridge those gaps, at least for now, to bring that together and to help Jews all over the world connect and to study together.
Mo, we've come to the end of our hour. Time has absolutely flown. You are so inspirational and motivational as well. Your particular narrative is something which is quite close to me. You didn't specifically name your speech therapist, or because you went through a number of different ones. Who or other people who've helped you along the way to reach where you are. I had my specific speech therapist, Yoni Berger, who I call her my guardian angel, because just like you, the gift of the gab is my pranasa. It's my life force. It's what I'm able to do. So what you shared was just really hit me, as I'm sure it has everyone who, whether visible or invisible, has the various challenges that they've had to overcome to be the people that they are. But coming to Bushy to share it with us, we are genuinely grateful. And I am absolutely sure that you will continue to make a phenomenal impact in all the various communities and various institutions and organizations that you were able to touch with your very special way. So thank you very much on behalf of Rabbi Nick and Shira, who've organized the BLT program so phenomenally, myself and our educational team, who are so excited about the BLT program that we're in our second week now, going forward to the third week, where we will have Rabbi Y.Y. Rubenstein, a fan favorite of the community, who will be coming next week to join us. Hope those who ordered their dinners were able to enjoy them like we were, and trying not to be a slob at the same time that we were on the screen. But looking forward to sharing lots of programming. Just one thing regarding tomorrow evening, we normally have our schmooze on at 8:45 on a Thursday evening, because we're having a memorial for Rabbi Saxon, which we've sent the email around to the community, which begins at 8 p.m. with Through the United Synagogue. That will take precedent over regular programming. It'll be something really, really phenomenal and special that I'm sure will be a great tribute, but also great chizuk and inspiration for us as well. So lots going on in the community. One more time, Mo, thank you very much for joining us. We wish you bracha v'hatzlacha, only success and blessing in all that you continue to do for Klal Yisrael and for everyone that you touch as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a privilege.